On Thanksgiving they voted me out of the family. I responded with a folder detailing over $78,000 in support and years of being used. Everyone cheered. I laughed gently and replied. Then I guess you won't need this. I put a folder on the table. The moment she opened it she screamed. Before we carve the turkey, Natalie remarked, rising from her chair with a smug, contrived look. There's something we need to say. Everyone became quiet. Fork stopped in midair. My stomach constricted. I recognized that tone. It was the same one Mom used to ground me at 14 for a party I didn't even attend. We had a family vote, she explained, looking around at everyone like a pageant queen about to be crowned. And we've decided you're not family anymore. Silence. Then there was some cheering. Cheering. My cousin Laura applauded as if she were at a concert. Uncle Mitch raised his wine glass in toast. Even my mother laughed and remarked, well, someone had to say it. I sat there paralyzed, staring at the plate. The stuffing had cooled but my blood was boiling. My father did not even glance at me. He just sipped his beer and murmured. It's probably for the best. Wow, I murmured, carefully pushing back my chair. You guys actually rehearsed this? Natalie smiled wider. You've been toxic for years. We're just finally done pretending. You're not family, my mother explained, going for the cranberry sauce as if we were talking about the weather. It's unanimous. I looked around. Nobody spoke up. Not a single person. Good, I replied gently. Then I reached into my backpack. I figured this might happen, I said, taking out a thick folder and carefully setting it in the center of the table. The sound it made a thunk cut through the laughs. Natalie blinked. What is that? I grinned and leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. Why don't you find out? She grabbed it and ripped it open, her mouth twisted into that sarcastic little sneer she always wore when she believed she was winning. Then she turned the first page and stopped smiling. Her face became pallid. Her eyes scanned the following page and the next. Then she shouted. I meant to yell. Like a blood-curdling horror movie scream. Her chair smashed behind her and she jumped upright, slamming the folder close as if it had burned her hands. You monster, she exclaimed. You messed up, twisted weirdo. Gasps resonated across the table. Joel, her husband, grabbed the folder and opened it. Then his mouth fell. He stared at me. Is this? I nodded once. It's all real, I said. Every word. Every receipt. Every screenshot. The table became dead silence. You could hear a fork clink in the kitchen. My mother's mouth opened and closed repeatedly like a fish struggling for oxygen. You were so sure I wouldn't fight back, I murmured, carefully getting up. So sure I'd stay the quiet one, the doormat, the cash cow. But guess what? I leaned over and stared Natalie dead in the eyes. Your little show. It's over. You want to know what was within the folder? I will get there. But first let me explain how we got here. Natalie did not wake up one day and realize I wasn't her family. That conclusion was made over many years. Brick by brick. Comment after comment. Betrayal upon betrayal. I was never their favorite, not even close. Natalie was the star. The golden girl. Good grades, big smile, I knew how to work a room. She could lie directly to someone's face and have them appreciate her for it. I, on the other hand, remained quiet. Private. I didn't require attention and they despised that. They saw my quiet as weakness. I moved out at the age of 19. I paid for college myself. Worked 2 jobs. Never sought assistance. Meanwhile, Natalie failed 2 majors. She traveled to Europe to find herself. Then she returned home and married Joel, the human equivalent of a LinkedIn profile and a blazer. What about the wedding? I paid for half. My parents couldn't afford it, but they managed to book a 2-week trip shortly after. I did not complain. I never did. Even when they joked that I was the family accountant, I continued to assist. Paying for Dad's dental surgery. I sent money when Mom claimed the heat bill was past due. Even financing a portion of my cousin Laura's tuition when she was waitlisted for a scholarship. They constantly said thank you. Sure. But with that tone. The person who said, well, of course you'd help. You don't have a family of your own. And perhaps it is what caused it. See, I am single. No children. No spouse. There's no drama. It's just myself, my work, and my dog. And in their minds that meant I had nothing better to do than subsidize their disasters. Natalie treated me like I was her personal failsafe. When did Joel lose his job? She called me first. Just a small loan. When did her automobile break down? You make 6 figures? What's 2 grand? When her child required therapy but her insurance didn't pay it. Yeah, guess who she called? I was always willing to help. Always. Because I persuaded myself it was family, but helping became an obligation. Then comes expectancy. Then comes demand. It started little. Dinner time jokes have a double meaning. Oh, you brought wine. Must be nice to afford good wine. Of course you're early, you have no kids to worry about. I wish I could work late every night and avoid my husband too. Then things grew uglier. You're so cold. Maybe that's why you're still alone. You don't understand real stress. You don't have a real life. You're just bitter that no one needs you. Except they needed me. Constantly. Financially. Quietly. Behind closed doors. Then came the text. Natalie. Hey, can you co-sign for a small business loan? Joel and I want to start a wellness cafe. Me? No. Natalie. Wow. Really? Then came the quiet. That happened 3 months ago. Since then I've received the cold shoulder. Mom stopped phoning. Dad sent one-word responses. Nobody invited me to the last family meal. Natalie blocked me on social media after I shared a story about shutting out harmful people. But I didn't sulk. Instead I began retrieving receipts. Literal receipts. See, I keep records. Bank transfers. Emails. Screenshots. Dates. I am not stupid, and in the last 5 years alone I've sent almost $78,000 to various family members. $78,000? $8,000 for Joel's rehabilitation. Natalie's emergency dental work cost $2,300 and turned out to be elective veneers. $1,500 for my father's back surgery. $12,000 for my mother's credit card debt. $6,000 for Laura's college move-in expenses. $4,500 for a family emergency that turned out to be a trip to Cabo, and not just once. None of them offered to pay me back. They just took. And when I stopped providing, they assumed I was the problem. So I created the folder. All transfer confirmations are included. Every email and SMS demanding funds. Natalie accused me of being deceptive in front of her friend after I declined the loan. A chronology of every large payment I've made over the previous 5 years. And to top it all off, copies of their mocking Facebook and Instagram posts about me. I have screenshots of Natalie calling me a cash cow with no spine in a private comment thread that she was unaware I had access to. So yes. That is what she noticed when she opened the folder. That is what made her scream. Natalie was not only exposed, she was dismantled. Fact by fact. Line by line. Page by page. Meanwhile, the rest of the family discovered what they had done. My mother looked like she was about to faint. Joel? He gazed at the line that read $4,200 to cover Natalie's credit card used at a hotel in Santa Monica with someone named Alyssa. And merely said, "What is this?" I didn't respond. I did not have to. Because for the first time I was not protecting myself. I was simply showing them the truth. You kept records? My mother finally asked, her voice trembling. Of everything? I turned to her, calm as always. You never remembered. So someone had to? Natalie was still standing. Still pale. She clenched her hands at her sides. Her gaze darted to Joel. To me. Go to the folder. This is a violation, she said. You had no right to. No right? I replied, carefully rising up. You just stood in front of this whole family and declared me not family. You all clapped. And now you're upset that I came prepared. Joel turned another page in the folder. What's this about Santa Monica? He questioned, his voice tense. Natalie's head snapped toward him. Don't start. Who's Alyssa? He inquired. Why were you at a hotel for 3 nights on my credit card? Her silence was louder than any response. Wait, my mom interrupted, bringing her palms up. Can we all just calm down and be reasonable? Sure, I replied. Let's be reasonable. Let's talk about the time you called me a parasite while cashing the check I sent you. She blinked. That's not fair. We were under stress. No, I snapped. You were stressed and I always bailed you out. And when I say no, I suddenly become the enemy. My father, who had been silent until now spoke up. You're making this into something bigger than it is. I turned to face him and my voice lowered. You've let them do this to me for years. You knew. You saw it. You've heard it. And you let it happen because it was easier than confronting them. He did not refute it. Natalie slapped her hand into the table. You're just bitter because no one needs you anymore. Wrong, I replied bitterly. I am not bitter. I'm finished. She gave a sour laugh. You're pathetic. Do you know how dramatic this all looks? Bringing a folder? Printing screenshots? You think this makes you the victim? You're just proving you're a control freak. And you're just proving, I said, that you only cared about me when I was paying your bills. You don't get to play the martyr, she yelled. You chose to help. You didn't have to. And yet somehow, I murmured, going forward. You expected it every single time. Until it was no longer helpful but rather an obligation. And when I stopped, you voted me out. My voice cracked, not from grief but from wrath. You did not want a brother, you wanted a wallet with legs. Joel stood up holding the packet. Is this true, he inquired, glancing at Natalie. All of this? Natalie glanced at him and for the first time she didn't respond. There are no phony tears. No deflection. There's just silence. You lied to me, he stated. About the hotel, the money, and him? You made it sound like he was insane. I had to, she exclaimed. He was turning everyone against me. I wasn't, I said. You did that all by yourself. The room became quiet again. Then my mother leaned forward and tried again. Her voice softened. Honey, we may have overreacted, but it's still family and families quarrel. Let's put this behind us. I shut her off. You're not hearing me. She blinked. What? I am not seeking peace, I am not asking for forgiveness, I am telling you I'm finished. Natalie scoffed. Oh, stop pretending like this is some big moment, you've said that before. I looked her dead in the eye. Not like this. I reached into my coat pocket and took out another envelope. What now, my father inquired, obviously fatigued. I tossed it on the table. Joel snatched it before it slid away. He opened it. Read the first line. His eyes expanded. What is this, he murmured. I responded for him. Power of attorney documents for mom were revoked. Medical proxy revoked. Emergency contact information has been removed. I've already signed the paperwork. I am no longer legally or emotionally liable for any of you. My mother gave a gasp. You're cutting ties? Completely? Completely, I replied. Starting now. You're being selfish, she replied, tears welling up in her eyes. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. I turned to face her and my voice fell again, calm. Final number, you're not. I grabbed my coat, took one more look at them before walking out the door. Leaving them in the midst of Thanksgiving dinner. Stunned and speechless. Surrounded with cold food and unpleasant truths. I walked out. And I did not look back. Not because it wasn't painful, it did. But when I closed the door behind me, stepped off their porch and entered the cold night air, I felt something move within of me. For the first time in years. I could breathe. I didn't drive directly home. I pulled off the road near a lake I used to frequent as a child. Where Dad used to go me fishing. I sat there silent. Looking out at the quiet water. And I experienced something I hadn't felt in a long time. There's nothing grabbing my attention. There is no guilt. There is no pressure. No one is waiting for a check or a ride or a favor. Only quietness. The next morning was silent. The following day nothing happened. But on the third day the texts began. First my mother. A missed call. Then another. Then a voicemail. You really mean it? We were angry, but we're still your family. I did not respond. Natalie then sent text messages. You don't even realize what you've done. Joel's filing for divorce. Are you happy? Something is really wrong with you. Then my father. You went too far. We all said things we regret, but what you did was nuclear. Your mother is a wreck. Come fix this. I did not respond to any of them. And honestly, I expected to feel guilty. I imagined myself tossing and turning at night wondering if I had gone too far. But instead I slept better than I have in years. There was no more second-guessing each text. Stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more late-night Venmo solicitations or guilt trips posing as emergencies. For the first time in decades I could hear myself thinking. I began waking up early. Going on runs. Making coffee slowly. I made appointments that I had put off for years. Dentist, doctor. Even a psychotherapist. Not because I was broken. But I was now free to care for myself. I rewrote my emergency contacts. I removed my parents. I changed my passwords. Froze all joint accounts they had access to. I blocked Natalie on all platforms. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about coming to a close. A week after Thanksgiving I received a text from Laura, my cousin, who clapped when they voted me out. I didn't know you paid for my tuition. I'm sorry. I followed the crowd. You were always the one who actually helped. I didn't respond. But I reread it twice. Then another surprise. A message from Joel. I filed the papers. Everything in that folder checked out. She cheated. Lied. Manipulated. Not just you, me too. He added. You did the right thing. I should have left sooner. I wasn't expecting that. But it landed. A few days later I did something I hadn't done for years. I applied for a job in a different city. Not because I'm running, but I was finally free. No more. You should stay close to home. No more. Who will take care of them if you leave? I began reconnecting with friends I had not seen in years. People I'd withdrawn from since I was always preoccupied with family matters. And the wildest part? Some of them saw my message on Reddit. They contacted out simply to say, "We're proud of you." That was brave. Nobody asked for money. No one made me feel guilty. Nobody tried to spin it. Simply support. Simple, honest, clean. Somebody asked me, "Don't you regret it?" I thought for a second. Vince said. "I only regret not doing it sooner." I assumed that was it. And in a way it was. But with individuals like them nothing ever goes well. Especially as kids begin to feel the effects of your absence. The first several weeks following Thanksgiving were peaceful. Beautifully and frighteningly calm. No calls. There is no guilt. Just peace. Until Christmas. On December 22nd I received a text message from my mother, just a photo. This was their living room. Dressed in stockings. A half-decorated tree. Front and center a large empty space where they normally stack the presents. "It doesn't feel the same without you," the caption read. "Ellie constantly wonders why Uncle is not coming this year." I stared at it for quite a while. No apologies. No ownership. Just the same manipulative tone. "Look at what you've done. Take a look at who you are harming." I didn't respond. Natalie tried phoning on December 23rd. I let it ring out. She then sent a message. "I realize I messed up, but you don't have to punish everyone. Please come by for Ellie, she misses you." 2 minutes later. "Additionally, Mom and Dad are behind on their mortgage. I understand you don't care anymore, but the bank called today. I assumed you would want to know." There it was. The request. Always wrapped in a cloak of guilt. It was always coated with faux tenderness, but it always concluded with a request. I blocked that number. On December 24th Dad sent another text. "You made your point, we get it. But that is plenty, we need assistance, we are still your blood." That night I sat alone by the fireplace drinking a glass of wine. I gazed around my tiny apartment. There was no tree or noise, just me in the solitude that they said would ruin me. And for the first time in my life I felt grateful for the silence. But it did not end there. In January I received a call from an unfamiliar phone number. I took it up out of habit. "Is it Daniel?" a man's voice inquired. "Yes." "Who is calling?" "My name is Mark," he said. "I am phoning on behalf of your father. He added that you are the chief executive of the family trust." I froze. "I removed the job 2 months ago." I stated that it was finalized by the family attorney. "My name is not on anything." The man stopped. "I see. Your father stated that he was unable to contact you directly and requested that I investigate options in that situation." Of course they were. Natalie and my parents had run out of choices. The ATM was closed. The safety net was gone. They were now striving to be inventive. I hung up without saying another thing, but the last straw came in February. I received an envelope in the mail. Handwritten. There was no return address, but I immediately recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a 3-page letter. The first page was all about regrets. "We said things in fury. You have always been the strong one. We never understood how much we relied on you." The second page addressed guilt. Your father's health is not good. Natalie is utterly alone now. We're concerned about Ellie. She's struggling. The third page was the hook. We are selling the house but we are underwater on our mortgage. We only need a little aid to get through this. Then we won't ask again. Please, Daniel. Do it for your father. Do it for the family. I sat with the letter for a long, allowing myself to experience everything they wanted me to feel. The weight of responsibility, the pain of obligation, and the desperate need to repair what was damaged. Then I folded the letter, got up, went to the kitchen and threw it away. The truth is that they weren't asking for assistance. They were requesting access again. They did not want me back in the family. They wanted the version of me who refused to say no. The person who paid quietly, sacrificed quietly, and suffered silently. But that version of me is no longer here. I'm no longer their scapegoat. I am not their golden goose. I'm not the duct tape that keeps a broken house together. I am finished. The most alarming element for them is that I can function without them. I received a new job and relocated to a new location with a larger space and a fresh start. I began helping on weekends, not because anyone needed me but because I wanted to. I created a life in which no one phones me at 11 p.m. to cover up a mistake they refuse to admit, and I am not punished for being independent. Where kindness is not exploited as leverage. I don't regret aiding them, but I do regret taking so long to stop. You want to know what true tranquility feels like? It's not about being surrounded by family. It means being rid of those who only refer to you as family when they need something. Update. Months later, I doubted this post would receive attention. Honestly, I just needed to say it and put it somewhere, but I read every single remark. The individuals who said you were brave do not deserve you. Thank you. I had no idea how much I needed to hear that until I actually did. And of the few who inquired what if they change? I've also asked myself that question. It's been several months now. They did not change. After I cut them off, after the folder, after the yelling stillness and letters, I hoped that someone would get it. That they would reflect. That they'd say we're sorry. They did not. They became quiet for a bit. Then they became strategic. Then they became desperate. Then they turned nasty again. But I got free. Since then I've moved. I have a job that does not keep me up at night. I started therapy, real therapy. The kind when you stop attempting to fix everyone else and instead learn to sit with yourself. I cook for myself now. I sleep better. I go outside more. I don't flinch when the phone rings. And yes, I do think about Ellie, what she's being taught and what she'll grow up believing is normal. But I also know this. I am an example of someone who has finally had enough. A few days ago I received another handwritten note from my mother. It was 3 words. We are still family. There is no context, apology, or change, just the same old hook. And for the first time I felt nothing. There is no rage or despair, just nothing. I threw it away and prepared dinner. So I'm returning here because this place provided me with unexpected insight. Strangers saw me more clearly than my own blood ever could. So here's my question. Did I do the right thing by cutting them off, decreasing the weight, and saying no with conviction? Was I too chilly, or was I tired of being the only one holding everything together? I don't know. But I know this. For the first time in my life I am not surviving. I am living. Thank you for reading. Still listening. To stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.